Hi and hello Kaumudy viewers. ഇന്ന് ഞാനുള്ളത് മുംബൈയിലാണ്. ഞാൻ ഭയങ്കര എക്സൈറ്റഡ് ആണ് കാരണം ഫ്രീഡം അറ്റ് മിഡ് നൈറ്റ് ഇതിന്റെ കാസ്റ്റ് ആണ് ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ കാസ്റ്റിനെ ആദ്യം ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യാം, എന്നിട്ട് നമുക്ക് അവരുടെ വിശേഷങ്ങൾ ചോദിച്ചറിയാം. സോ ഫസ്റ്റ് ലെറ്റ് മി വെൽക്കം Arif Zakaria. He is playing Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and Malishka, she is playing Sarojini Naidu, and Ira Dubey, she is playing Fatima Jinnah. So welcome. അപ്പോൾ ഇവരുടെ വിശേഷങ്ങൾ നമുക്ക് ഇനി ചോദിച്ചറിയാം. I think you guys were worried for a moment that whether I'm going to continue in Malayalam.
I was like Malayalam.
Malayalam. All right.
We would have just acted.
Yeah. Because
we would have gone along with it.
Oh yeah. That's
you will teach us a few things in Malayalam before this interview is over.
Definitely, I'll do that. I'll try my best. Coming to the series, we got to see the preview, first 2 episodes, and it was really captivating. We really wanted more. So what was your experience? Like, this is like, it's not something that is fiction. These are the characters which played role for what India is today. So how serious were you about these characters, and how excited are you about the outcome? I will start with this.
How serious? I was very serious about it.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited, exuberant about the outcome. And as you said, it depicts a decade or a time in history which we all are aware of, and we interpret that in our own different ways. So this is another interpretation. Perhaps I'm not saying the most authentic, but a very factual interpretation of what events happened from 45, 46, 47, 48, right up to the partition of India. And the people behind it, the reasons why they behaved in a certain way, their political ideology, their political rivalry, their ego, their own self-belief, what they believed was right, and against the backdrop of undivided India then. So it's fascinating, it's been very enriching, and I've never been excited about a project as much as I've been on this one. So I'm really looking forward to it releasing on the 15th, and I await people's response to it.
All right. Malishka,
How serious?
No, not serious. What is the excitement? How excited are you about the whole thing?
Oh, supremely. Because Freedom at Midnight is not just another entertainer that you're going to watch on, an OTT channel. It's the story of your nation, right? It's the story of the partition. It's the story of how decisions were made. It's the story where you're humanizing your leaders who've otherwise only seemed to us through our history textbooks to be demigods or kings or in so many ways very one-dimensional. So I think you will see shades to all of them, including Muhammad Ali Jinnah, as you know. It's wonderful to be part of such a project at such a time, the times that we're living in. I have very high hopes for it, considering there was a lot of work. Nikhil Advani worked for 4 years on the script. We were chosen, all of us, I think, at least 2 years before we started shooting for it. So you can imagine the kind of work and gravitas that has gone into it. We have been prepping for our characters in some ways deeply, like I'm sure he will tell you how he prepped for his character. Some of us were told, for example, I at some point said, do I have to learn Bengali? And I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. But Nikhil said, chill, right? And he gave us such pointers of who our characters could be. We worked on all of those, and then you will see that the sets, the makeup, just the drama of that period will take over so completely, because we know the story and yet you don't know the story. So I'm excited for it, even as a viewer. Even if I wasn't part of this, I would have been supremely excited to see my fabulous colleagues doing what they do, because it's going to be fabulous. And are we nervous? Yeah, a little bit.
Nerves are good.
Yeah, nerves are good.
What is your experience?
I think Malishka and Arif have covered a lot of it actually. Serious, I believe work has to be fun. I believe that whatever you do, the more serious the topic, the more fun you should have, in some ways. So I was very serious, very committed, of course. I think all of us, like we've talked about in the last 2 days, Litwin, it's such a delicious, meaningful period in our history. You know, there's an instantaneous sort of interest, intrigue, curiosity, a connection emotionally even to partition, and to the freedom movement and how we got our independence. So I think that there was a commitment which permeated right down from Nikhil's passion for the material, his love for the book, the way his writers and him have collaborated and put this story together, which you have seen in the first 2 episodes.
Right.
Okay, there's an attention to detail in every aspect of this story, which is where the seriousness comes in.
Right.
So all of us brought that. We had to bring our A game, you see, because everybody else was doing it as well in every single department, and you can see that in the show. So I think serious is the wrong word. I think there was a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, and we also tried to have a lot of fun along the way. Serious, why? I think because, I mean, we were serious in the sense we were committed to telling a very important story,
Right.
which is at once entertaining, but also at once educational.
And really the subject itself was like, this is like what India was, and that
And
is
I think
exactly...
it's more than that, like we've all talked about, history can be told from so many perspectives.
Yeah.
Here you have a source material, which is a book. It is an adaptation of the book with some creative liberties,
Right.
with some cinematic liberties, of course. But that's the exciting part. That's the interesting part. Ki book pe aadharit hai, and their perspectives of all the main players, the big
Right.
players, Mountbatten, Jinnah ho, ya Mountbatten ho, even the English, ya Gandhi ji ho, ya Nehru ho. All the big players and
Yeah.
what they were doing behind closed doors to take those massive decisions.
Right.
What was happening. So I think that kind of insight we haven't got before in any show.
All right. Okay. So how did it feel for you to walk into a Nikhil Advani show? Because it's the 1940s era, and for watching the first 2 episodes, I felt like, as you said, there's attention to each and every detail. So as an artist, you are already halfway done when you are in the set, and when you experience it.
Yes.
Then it's just you performing. So how did that feel for you?
No, as you said, everything was so meticulously done. So when you actually just took a step and got into the set, you were pretty much transported into that era with everything. So they had stationery which had my character's name. They had my handkerchief which had my initials. They had a pen which had my name, which could have been probably what Muhammad Ali Jinnah had in his office or in his study. Then they had very specific things on the whole, my desk, the old-fashioned stationery, old-fashioned pen holder, the tobacco.
Many of which Arif sir was planning to steal, I believe.
Yeah, I couldn't because I had a conversation with the art director. She said, "Arey, it's just stuck with glue and all. You keep it at home, it's going to just collapse. So don't do it.
Such
That'll make
beautiful
something."
props and things, no? Everyone's eyes were like, oh God.
Yeah. The saris in my case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when all that is done, it becomes pretty much easy. All you need to do is just, do your job and hit the mark and remember your lines and, just do what you are supposed to do as an actor. The whole world is, or the environment is such that it compels you to be a little more than competent, I think. So, that all helps because of the entire prep work they did and the way they executed everything, all the departments really, unfailingly, every single day for those 60, 70 days. So, it's very good.
All right. So, what was your preparation for this character? Because Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when you hear the term Jinnah, he's considered to be a star at the point, and also he's very controversial in that sense. So, So bringing that balance, how did you work it, and what was the kind of research that went into playing such a character?
So, one is aware of Jinnah living in Bombay, and he's a part of the history lessons we are aware of. A lot of information is available on the net. And then elements of the book which are there in the script described Jinnah very beautifully, his where he started from, his political ideology, how it got shaped, how he got into conflict with Gandhi's character, how he split from there, went away, came back, and how the Muslim League actually propelled him and made him come out with this one strong ideology which he propagated and fought for that. Right or wrong is a perspective question, how you view it.
Yeah.
So he was complex, he was very dimensional. He starts off as a big lawyer in Bombay, very intelligent, had the big industrial houses as his clients. And he was very astute. He internally was a British Nawab himself because, he always wore the savile row suits and he was polished and he hung around with all the Caucasian, white, British people. So somewhere there was a shift when Gandhi came. So that conflict, which people may be aware of, but we've showed it very, very explicitly in the show as to what caused this shift.
Right.
And he couldn't supersede Gandhi's ideology because Gandhi traveled all over the world and understood the common man, understood the man last sweat, and he hung around with villagers. Jinnah didn't that. Jinnah could interpret a certain situation and form his opinion. So they go through that whole journey, and the show goes through that. preparation wise, because information is available, you loosely form a character as to what this is supposed to be. Physically, he had to be a little frail and weak because he was ailing. The story catches him at a time when, tuberculosis, he was given the verdict that he's going to die in 2-3 years. He had a certain strong demeanor. I thought he spoke in a certain arrogant way. He addressed people assuming that he's giving a command. Even his normal conversations, I would assume, would be very authoritarian, very strong, powerful personality. And he could see through people. He used people for certain things. His relationship, which the script shows, which is perhaps history is not aware of, with Liaquat, who became the first Prime Minister of Pakistan, is very unique and very elaborately shown again. That Jinnah executed his plan through Liaquat. So Liaquat was an HMB, his master's voice. Then again, they come within the confines of the home, the relationship with Fatima Jinnah, how Fatima Jinnah was a bouncing board for Jinnah. And he could vent his angst and anguish and resentment to Fatima. And, the reaction Fatima gave to those moments or those episodes actually formed the bigger ideology which Jinnah eventually propagated to the world. So all these aspects are there from the book which have been incorporated. And that gives a unique take, I think, to the character of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And the smoking was very complicated for me. He was a chain smoker till he died. So all these things were interesting. They're fascinating to incorporate, and they really defined who Muhammad Ali Jinnah was.
All right. And as support, that is
What an answer.
what an explanation, what an answer.
Beautiful answer.
Yeah.
The rest
Mr.
has done us
Zakaria.
good since lunch.
Be quiet now. We have nothing more
Now
to
we have to
say.
start the mazak and masti also, na Jinnah Sahab?
He doesn't want maza, he wants you to answer the question.
We will.
All right.
But let him
A bit
see
of
you
mazza,
smile
that's
as
fine.
Arif.
तो मलयालम में नहीं बोल रहे, कट हो जाएगा सब मजा.
All right.
Sorry.
And as supporting as a sister, and
As what? Sorry?
As a sister.
As what did you say before that?
As a sister,
As before
as a
that?
supporting,
Supporting.
Yeah.
Yes.
as a sister to the character, and what was it like? And Fatima had she was an activist as well, and
Yes.
also she was she was someone who supports her brother,
Yes.
and at a point maybe a brother's voice, if I'm not mistaken,
At a point?
a brother's voice, like
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
exactly
so I'm
should we
glad
put out?
glad to hear that you know that she was an activist, because she was, and she
Yes.
became much more later in her life. She after her brother's death, she not only stood for what he stood for, she carried the baton and she carried on his legacy,
Right.
but she also did a lot for women in Pakistan. She was extremely forward thinking, very modern. She wanted to do away with the parda. She didn't want remarriage. She was very, 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 very at the forefront of changing education laws and things like that. So she, and right up to her death, there was a lot of interest in her politics, her ideas. She died very mysteriously in her 60s. So she was an extremely educated woman, but also somebody who was used to being in the shadows. As women at that time were. They were very little allowed in the public arena. Sarojini was an anomaly. She was one of the most feisty, open women, female, strong characters who was openly in politics, who was a true leader, openly.
Right.
But I think someone like Fatima had to do it from the wings all her life. So, but that said, she was not only a political comrade and ally to her brother, she was his confidant, personally also. Right. She devoted her life to this guy. Imagine, I mean, she had a blossoming dentistry career. She was a doctor. She had her own, she was independent, and she dropped everything, gave up the idea of marriage, gave up the idea of children, devoted her life to her brother, and had equal passion, commitment, and fire inside her for Pakistan. That is what was, I think, one of the most beautiful, rewarding things for me to understand as an actor, especially living in India.
Right.
Both of us we are on the other side.
Right.
So we had to really try and understand the birth of this new nation at the cost of what it was, dividing a country like India, and the violence and the repercussions that followed. What did that really mean? Why did we really want that? Why was it so important? You see? And then, of course, on the personal level, the relationship with her brother, which I think at this particular moment in history, when he's suffering, he's ailing, how is she there for her brother in that moment in his life? That's the core of the personal dynamic between the two of them. So I think both those things were very rewarding and interesting to go into. And as a woman, she was a strong, resilient, humanitarian, didn't smile much, didn't enjoy the company of women much, was very much in the company of men constantly, was a doctor, so she was a humanitarian, spoke only when necessary, all very different from me. I smile a lot, I talk a lot. So I think it was very interesting to try and capture the essence of this woman who we actually don't have much information about.
Right.
There are very few perspectives and very little literature on her, which are also mostly from the perspective of her brother. You see,
Right.
obviously, as women's narratives are very often in history. So I think it was very interesting to try and create something out of the very little thing that we had and the little bit of photographic archival material and little bit of speeches that we had. And to capture the essence, hopefully, in some way, of this beautiful, strong, iconic woman.
All right. Thank you.
She will breathe life into Fatima. The one that you don't know. I mean, I guess Ira will be the first one to show you a little more because she's done so much research and then stepped into her character.